I want to welcome everybody to our 2020 virtual Hike the Hill webinar. I think we're all kind of growing tired of the word virtual, but it is the world we live in. And so we want to, continue to adhere to the social distancing policies that we need to. And, I'd much rather be having a briefing up in Washington, D.C. with y'all and talking about the issues that we're going to discuss with our members of Congress, and then going through the halls of the buildings up there on Capitol Hill with you guys in person. But unfortunately, that's not in the cards for 2020. And because of that, we decided we needed to pivot and look at a new way to hold our Hike the Hill. And I know that Blake and Murphy will give you a little bit of background on what that's going to look like. But I just want to thank everybody for taking the time out for this briefing, and also over the next couple of weeks for taking time to join us in meeting with our congressional members. Hike the Hill and CUNA GAC are always two of our most important events. It's really our time to shine as credit unions with our congressional members, letting them know the difference, the credit union difference, and the issues of importance to credit unions. So this is just a chance for us to give you a little bit of information about what you can expect in those meetings, the issues we're going to cover, some do's and don'ts of decorum, but really also for us to be able to answer questions that you may have or that you may be curious about. Several of our lead counterparts have already held their virtual Hike the Hill, so we've kind of learned from them and hopefully somewhat perfected this, but I doubt it's going to be perfect, as nothing is in this virtual world. So we just ask that you bear with us, that you remain patient, and that you know that we're here to help you in any way that we can. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to my team and just ask that, before you speak, just introduce yourselves and your role, and then go into what you're talking about, and look forward to meeting with y'all today, and then having these great meetings with our members of Congress going forward. So with that, I'll turn it over. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everybody. In case you don't know me, my name is Murphy Kennedy. I'm the PAC and Grassroots Coordinator for the state of Florida. And we're really excited to have everyone here today to chat about our format, a little bit of background on Hike the Hill and what to expect and how it's different this year. So the first thing we like to address is our Project Zip Code. And if you're unfamiliar with Project Zip Code, it's a program that we've been highlighting this year, but especially now going into Hike the Hill. It's a very secure online program that counts your membership and matches them by congressional district, state legislative district, and county. It's incredibly helpful for us in scheduling these lawmaker meetings so we can show them the true grassroots strength of their district. How many members of their constituency do their decisions involving credit unions and financial issues affect? And it's very helpful for us. It's quite easy to download and to use. It really only takes about 5 minutes. We ask that our credit union members update it about once a year to keep the numbers as close and up to date as possible. But coming up to these Hike the Hill meetings, we've asked once again, if you have not updated your Project Zip Code numbers recently, to please go ahead and do so. It gives us the most accurate and up-to-date information for scheduling these lawmaker meetings. To download Project Zip Code, if you haven't already, you can visit the website here, or you can also find a link through our website on the Grassroots Advocacy Tools section. We have a Grassroots Tools and Programs checklist, and you can find the link there as well. Have to register through CUNA to get there, but once again, it's very easy to do. You can see the numbers here on the screen of how many credit unions have updated their Project Zip Code information since 2018. We'd love it to be a yearly thing, and now especially we're coming up to Fall Hike the Hill. Asking once again, if you haven't done it in the last year, please do so. It really shows our lawmakers the impacts their decisions have on their constituency. And a little background on Hike the Hill, if you're not familiar with it or haven't been before, this is something that's one of our biggest events. And usually what we do in the fall is travel to Washington, D.C., on Capitol Hill, and speak to members of Congress and senators and or their key staff. It's one of our most vital grassroots efforts, and it's the window for our advocates to help illustrate the positive impacts of our industry and the challenges that we're facing, especially now in the time of COVID. And it's our opportunity to share why we are important, how we're structured, and educate these members to make sure that they're making informed decisions that affect, as we've said, thousands of members of their own districts. And they're incredibly important. So now with coronavirus relief efforts, fully underway, it's more important than ever to show our lawmakers the credit union difference and make sure if they're not aware of some of the great stories and things that credit unions are doing to help positively impact their communities. And it's our chance to show them our true grassroots strength. I just got muted. Okay, and one more, move forward. And so just in case you're unaware of our dates, normally it was held in fall, and so we decided to keep that as normal as possible and also hold it right on the dates we would have been in Washington, D.C. So now, due to coronavirus pandemic concerns, Fall Hike the Hill will be taking place in a virtual format. It's still a visual representation of our credit union's grassroots advocacy strength. It's still equally as important that we have a great showing and show our lawmakers what we're doing. So even from our computer screens, which I know we're all so sick of, we can successfully engage with our lawmakers and make a positive, lasting impact on the credit union movement. So we're just thrilled to have these events starting next week. So our meetings will take place from September 14th through 18th, and then we're going to have a week break and then pick it back up on September 28th and finishing on October 2nd. The meeting dates and times can be found on our website on lsu.coop/co-op/hike-the-hill. We have a link on our website as well. It's very easy to find. If you go under advocacy, there's a little drop-down button and it will take you directly to our site. Please note that you will need an LSU login to get onto the website. But once you're there, you can see all of our meetings, the ones that have not yet been scheduled, and all of our frequently asked questions. All of our resources can all be found on that page. And if you don't see your lawmaker meeting yet there, we're still scheduling some of these offices, due to flexibility and schedule, haven't been able to get back to us yet, but please check back constantly if your meeting is not there yet. We're still in the process of scheduling and we're updating it as soon as these meetings become available.
And Murphy, on that, I'd also like to just add in that we are still working on setting up a meeting for the NCUA as well. That's been a little bit challenging as they're transitioning board members, and they've had board meetings, but we are going to have a meeting. It's likely going to be with Larry Fazio, the executive director of the NCUA. We're just waiting on a date and time, and we will make sure that everyone gets information on that when it is scheduled.
Great, thank you.
Hey everybody, I'm Blake Westbrook. I'm the Director of Political Action and Grassroots for the League. I'm going to go over just kind of real quick how to register and some do's and don'ts and decorum. First of all, as Murphy said, you can visit lsu.coop/hike-the-hill to register for your meetings. It's pretty simple. You can just kind of scroll down and you can see we have a section that has frequently asked questions and resources. That's where we answer some questions that everybody's been asking. Also, we have our talking points and some financial information on the benefits of membership of a credit union for each state that you can share with your lawmaker when you have your meetings. So you would go down here, you would click on your state, like here, you'd click on Georgia, and then that would open up a drop down that would have every meeting that we have scheduled. And as Murphy said, we're still working with some offices to finalize meetings, so please check back often. We have made these meeting Zoom calls to where you can have to register to make sure that we keep those that are not part of the credit union industry out of our meetings, because we've had some other leagues that have had that problem. So you'll click register here and it'll take you directly to a registration page where you have to put your name, your email address, your job title. And we also have an area where you can leave questions and comments. So if you want to make sure that we have a question to ask your lawmaker, put it in there. We'll make sure that he gets that question asked if you're not able to speak at the meeting. Format, generally, and this is just not exclusive, but usually we'll begin the meeting with LSU staffer introducing the lawmaker to those on the call. Depending on the size of the call, if we have only 5 or 6 credit union advocates on the call, we may introduce everybody, but if it's a real big call, we'll just go straight into giving the lawmaker an opportunity to speak and address the group. Usually they'll get an update about what's going on in Congress. After that, we'll move into a question and answer format. So, there is a brief on the web page with all the legislative topics for you to discuss. Make it personal. We will do our best to tee up any issues, but we really want to make sure that you guys are heard and telling your story because that's kind of what's effective with these lawmakers' offices. We expect these meetings to last around 30 to 45 minutes. And at the end, we're going to try to take a photo of everybody so we can use it on social media. So just be sure to have your camera on and smile. Finally, since these meetings are official business meetings, we just ask everybody to dress like they're going to Capitol Hill and to turn your camera on if you're able to. We'll also engage the raise your hand functions for those who have a question, so we're not talking over each other. It's just some simple do's and don'ts. I'll go over these pretty quickly. Just kind of make sure that there's not a lot of noise because you're going to have your speaker on or your microphone on. Please mute your microphone when you're not speaking. Last thing we want is to have feedback. Disconnect any other devices you have from internet connection if you can, because that'll help the bandwidth and your meeting will go a lot smoother. Have good lighting. Have a backup plan in case your phone or computer does not connect. Make sure you have other applications on your phone or computer shut off. That way we don't have any other background noise. Test your camera, make sure it all works before we have our meeting. And then finally, just give everybody a chance to speak.
Yeah, to the first point Blake made about make sure your camera is turned on. Some feedback we've gotten from CUNA that they've heard from members of Congress that have already had these meetings is the congressional members want to see their constituents. So they're asking us to convey the message that when we do have these virtual meetings, please turn your camera on so that they can see you, and it's as natural as possible in the world we're living in. So that's a very good point that Blake made, and let's just make sure that we're all got our cameras on.
Just some don'ts real quick. Please don't go off message about non-credit union issues. Let's stick with the credit union issues. I mean, I know we all have personal political beliefs, but we don't want to talk about gun issues or entitlement reform when we're supposed to be talking about credit union issues. Please no eating or drinking during the meeting. Drinking water is okay, obviously. Don't seat yourself in a location that it appears unprofessional or that is busy in the background, if you can help it. No pets, children, or spouses on the discussion. I mean, I think that's an obvious. And don't be afraid to speak. A lot of times we'll have meetings and our advocates will be afraid to tell their story. And it's kind of like Jared said earlier, they want to hear from you. They want to see you. They want to hear your story. It means more coming from you because you're in the trenches every single day dealing with the issues, whether it's the PPP loans or serving your members or making sure your members are well taken care of during this time. No graphic backgrounds unless it's your credit union brand. I mean, normally I have an Alabama background on, but I'm not going to have that on during my meetings. I'll have an LSU background. And if you have any questions, please contact a member of the advocacy staff. We're always willing to help you guys out, make sure you have everything you need to make sure these meetings are successful as possible. And with that, I'll turn it over to Jared.
Great. Thanks, Blake, and Murphy as well. So now we're going to go into the briefing portion of the webinar where we kind of give you an overview of the issues we're going to talk about. Now, of course, this is not an exhaustive list of things that credit unions are interested in. And we may not get to all of these issues in every meeting, but we wanted to make sure that you guys have just an overview of the issues that we're talking about with lawmakers. One thing to point out is these are basic, basic talking points that we're giving, basic briefing. There's more in-depth information on our website under resources. The team has done a great job of putting together, for lack of a better word, a meeting script for everybody. So make sure that you review that. Typically we would have printouts for you up in DC, but again, we're doing everything remotely. So we wanted to make sure that that's up on our website. And if you have any trouble finding that, just let us know and we'll get you the link. So the issues are the credit union difference, which that should be easy for everyone to talk about. What makes credit unions different. What we've done as credit unions during the pandemic. So what we've done for our members in our community, which includes the Credit Union Cares Challenge, that our foundation championed, the Paycheck Protection Program forgiveness legislation that's out there to forgive loans under a certain amount. The favorite topic that we've been talking about in every Hill visit I've been on since I've joined the league, which is merchant data breach. And then, of course, the credit union tax exemption, which could be a much bigger issue going into next year as Congress looks for money. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Allison and John to kind of go through the issues and let you know what we're looking at.
Hi, everyone. I'm Allison Allen. I'm the Senior Director of Governmental Affairs for Alabama. I'll echo my colleagues in saying thank you for joining us today in this webinar to go over what we can expect for Hike the Hill. As Blake was saying, all of you have talked about these issues thousands upon thousands of times. Fortunately and unfortunately, this year is a little bit different. We have a pandemic, so we do have some new topics to talk about. Let's start with the credit union difference. Obviously, before we get to the difference, we want to talk about how credit unions provide the same traditional financial services as banks. But we want to say that we're not for-profit financial cooperatives. We can talk about issues such as our member-based volunteer boards, fewer fees, better rates, easier access to credit. Most of you offer financial literacy and debt counseling services, which is something that lawmakers really like to hear. I'm going to highlight, we put some numbers up there on this slide for you. Like Jared said, we're going to get into the tax exemption. John is in a little bit. But this, as we know, banks go to Washington, D.C., they go to the State House. These days, they're going on Zoom meetings and saying credit unions don't pay taxes, and that's simply not true. So that credit unions pay $20 billion in local, state, and federal taxes annually is a really important figure. So the next time a bank advocate goes to a congressman, a member of the United States Senate, and says credit unions don't pay any taxes, we want them to have in their head, well, yes, they do. They pay $20 billion in taxes annually. So next slide, Blake. Financial first responders. Now we're going to talk about how this year has been different, and credit unions really have come to the aid of their members. You all have taken measures to help them as some are facing challenges and difficulties, losing jobs, losing income. You guys have come to the rescue. So we really want you to highlight some of the things that you've done, be it mortgage forbearance extensions, commercial loan forbearance extensions, fee waivers, deferred payments. We're going to get into SBA PP loans in a little bit. John's going to talk about that. A lot of you have done low rate emergency loans. But going back to SBA PPP, just from the 20,000 foot view before John gets into it, some of you have shared that you were not even SBA approved lenders prior to the pandemic, but that you were able to quickly secure SBA approval and start lending. So please be sure and highlight that as well. And highlight your experiences working with the SBA. They'll want to know, they'll want feedback. Next slide. The Credit Unions Care Challenge. I think all of you are familiar with this challenge. I want to talk about this and then some of the other things that all of you are doing in your communities. So the foundation invited credit unions to commit a minimum of $25 for each of their employees and then matched it so that the credit unions could spend money in communities to buy school lunches for kids. We have some examples up there. The $920,000 that credit unions have put back into local communities is a really important figure to keep in mind. But I want to talk about quickly some of the individual things that you have done that you shared with us and we've shared with lawmakers on the state level, on the local levels. And now it's your turn to share it with your federal lawmakers coming directly from you. You've partnered with food banks, you've hosted or supported food drives, you've partnered with your local schools, local governments, chambers of commerce to distribute school supplies, meals for children in schools. You've bought gift cards for people to use at restaurants and small businesses. These lawmakers, because they're not spending as much time in DC right now, are in their communities and they're seeing the effect that the pandemic is having on their communities as some restaurants and small businesses are closing. And we know that you're doing everything that you can to help keep those businesses open. Some of you have donated masks to hospitals. You've ordered lunch for hospital staff, snacks for nurses, or you've simply had your employees raise money and give to a local charity. I know I could call out all of you, every single one of you, and give an example, but I saw Alan Stabler and Bill Connor on the phone, so I'm going to call them out. They donated over 20,000 items to the community food bank here in Birmingham, which helped provide over 200,000 meals to this community. So that's a really good example. Again, all of you have the same examples, but that's a really good example, and lawmakers like to hear how you're keeping their communities afloat. Thanks, Mike.
Great. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is John Rothell. I'm the Senior Governmental Affairs Director for Florida. I'm going to go over the issues we'll be talking about. First of all, I want to note one thing that Allison said that is exactly what we want you to do, is to give examples of everything that we're talking about. I'm going to give specific issue related and specifics on issues, but if you can think of great examples from Main Street in your city when you're meeting with a legislator, it really holds a lot of weight. So we'll start here with passing PPP forgiveness. From the beginning of the pandemic, Paycheck Protection Program has been a saving grace to small and big businesses throughout the country. Credit unions, particularly those in Florida, were some of the largest providers in the country. Most of the loans were to small businesses and accounted for a vast majority in just numbers of loans made, while only accounting for a small portion of the actual loan amount total in the country. And what we're asking for Congress to do is make it easier to forgive those small loans that are under 150,000. It would help small businesses as well as credit unions get through this forgiveness process. So loans under 150 make it easier for them to forgive. And while you're talking to them about it, if you've gotten people and businesses through these loans that really helped their businesses, and you saw those specific examples, feel free to give those to the legislators so they know what's going on locally. The next issue here is merchant data breach. And as Jared mentioned earlier, this has been around for a long time, and I think most of you are probably very familiar with it. Credit unions are required to have data security standards over their members' data, of course. And we all know that when a consumer uses a card and it gets stolen, their financial institutions are left holding the bag. They make the consumers whole, but it costs credit unions millions of dollars while merchants have zero skin in the game. So if you have examples, one of the things we were talking about on a Zoom call earlier was if we had examples from every credit union on how much merchant data breach costs your credit union per year or over a number of years. For some credit unions, that's millions of dollars, and those are savings that could go directly into the community. So if you have those numbers, those are also great numbers to bring with you to the meeting and say, issuing new cards, covering losses and things like that are for credit unions, small and large, make a big difference in the community if you had that money and weren't paying it back. So our next issue is the credit union tax exemption, of course. This has been around for a long time as well. As we get further along into the COVID-19 process, as Jared said, states and the federal government are losing money, and they're not collecting as many taxes on a regular basis, and they're looking to fill those holes. So where are they looking to? And they're hearing in one side of the argument from banks that a great way to fill it is the credit union tax exemption. So we want to continually bring this up and make sure that while we're not confident that anything could pass anytime soon, we want to continually bring this up and make sure that legislators know that we're vigilant on credit union tax exemption. And raising taxes on credit unions equates to raising taxes on millions of individuals just in Florida. So while many of those can't even afford to have to pay higher taxes and pay higher rates at their banks or credit unions, so we want to make sure that they understand that we're going to continue to fight that. And you can let them know, of course, credit unions are not-for-profit cooperatives. They're formed completely different than banks, and that's why we continue to push the issue, and banks continue to push it against us. The reality is, as Allison said earlier, credit unions pay nearly $20 billion in taxes on the state, local, and federal level, and you want to continue to bring that up. These are big numbers that keep local governments, state governments, and the federal government operating on a regular basis. So, and again, just bring those examples of things that you provide to your communities, those benefits that credit unions bring to the communities on a regular basis, bring those to your meetings as well. We have one question, Jared, if you wanted to pick that up before we move on.
Yeah, who are the 3 states representatives and senators on the Ways and Means and Senate Finance Committee? We'll make sure that that is all on the website under resources as well. We've got several folks that sit on the banking committees and that sit on Ways and Means. So we'll make sure that all that information is updated on the website.
And while we have, of course, such a great audience, we thought we'd bring up the silent auction and let Blake and Murphy go over that.
Yeah, and I'm sure many of you have seen the barrage of emails Murphy and I have sent out about the silent auction, but every year we have an annual silent auction for the LSU FedPAC. It is normally held in conjunction with the Southeastern Credit Union Conference and Expo in Orlando. However, with COVID-19 having to cancel that conference, we decided that this being one of our biggest fundraisers for LSU FedPAC, that we were going to keep it on the calendar but move it. So we have moved it to October. The bidding is going to open up on the 5th and last to the 9th. And like I said, it's going to benefit LSU FedPAC, and there's going to be a match for Children's Miracle Network by Leverage. The way that we get our items for this auction is from credit unions. I know many of the credit unions on the call have either donated an item or donated cash for us to buy an item. And then maybe there's some they're not, but we would really appreciate a contribution from credit unions. It would go a long way to making sure that we have a fully funded LSU FedPAC so that we can help elect credit union friendly candidates. You can view our items on our silent auction bidding page. That's lsu.givesmart.com. You can also go to lsu.coop/silent auction for any information on the silent auction. And like I said earlier, by donating an item, it's making sure that we have a fully funded PAC and that we're going to make a difference in the election season. And with that, I'll open up to questions.
Well, thank you guys. I appreciate that. And to again answer Pat's question, we'll make sure that that information about lawmakers that sit on the Ways and Means, the Senate Finance, and also the House Financial Services Committee, that gets on the website. But with that, we're here to answer any questions. And also, if you'll flip to the next slide, Blake, I just want to make sure, and you'll all get copies of these slides as well, and they'll be on the website. But we wanted to make sure that we provided you with the key league advocacy staff contacts. Obviously myself, Allison, John, Blake, and Murphy, who you heard from today. But I also wanted to mention Sydney Rubin. Sydney is our new Senior Director of Governmental Affairs, and I say new, she's been with us 3 months now almost. But she had previously scheduled time off for today. She's actually joined us. She's on the call right now. So even on her time off, she's putting in duty, but wanted to make sure she was here. But she'll definitely be there for our Georgia credit unions at these congressional meetings, and wanted to make sure that I mentioned that. So with that, we will answer any questions. Of course, you can go ahead and type them in the chat. One question we just had was roughly how large of groups are you anticipating for the visits? It's going to probably vary from meeting to meeting. I would suspect that we will have more for the Senate meetings than we do for each of the congressional districts. What I've heard from my colleagues, from our colleagues in other states, is to expect anywhere from 5 to 15 for the congressional meetings. Some may be more than others, depending on who that congressional member is. And then they had about anywhere from 30 to 50 for the Senate meetings. We'd love to have even more than that if possible. Pass this information along to colleagues at your credit unions. The more the better, but we want people that want to be engaged and people that have good stories to tell as well. Any other questions?
Hey, Jared, it's Sydney. I just wanted to jump in real fast and just say hey to everybody and apologize for not being able to join in person or over the computer today, but just let you know that I'm looking forward to a good couple of weeks of meetings. And thank you to everybody for signing up, and I look forward to a good hike the hill.
Thanks, Sydney. Any other questions? One thing, I did have some people email me beforehand and ask if this was going to be recorded and posted on the website. Yes, it will be recorded. We'll make sure that that link gets on our website as well as put into our newsletter. So this information will be viewable again later. If in case, you get bored and you really want to watch the exciting LSU webinar that we're putting on and you want to see it again, it will be available. Is it okay to join congressional meetings not in our district? Again, because these aren't in person, it's much more acceptable than it would be if we were up in DC, because we have limited space, limited room. If there's someone that you so want to be in their meeting, if you're not in Doug Collins's district, but you really want to be in the Doug Collins meeting, we're not going to kick people out. The only way we would kick people out is if they were bankers, reporters, or disruptive. So we will absolutely allow that. Any other questions? I get nervous when I don't get questions. All right. Well, great. We're looking forward to a couple of great weeks, quote unquote, on the Hill, the virtual Hill. But if you think of anything between now and next week when these meetings start, please feel free to reach out to us. I know oftentimes I'll get off a call and all of a sudden it'll hit me that I wish I'd have asked that question. This is not the only time you can ask questions. You can reach out to any of us at any time and we're happy to answer them. So with that, unless there's anything else from the team, I'm ready to give you guys some time back in your day. All right. Well, thanks everybody. Appreciate it. Y'all have a good time and great first weekend of college football.
Thank you.